Gill, which is in addition to our already primary service area of Northfield, half of Irving, and Bernardston. I can tell you is that Bernardston and Irving have been absolutely fantastic partners to work with. Their personnel over there are more than willing to help us out. They jump on a truck when necessary to help us. I couldn't ask for better partners in this process. We are expecting to take delivery of the new ambulance at the end of June, which is has been brought forward by a number of months. We were expecting 500 days when we placed the order at last town meeting. It's now been pushed up to June. Sort of puts us in a little bit of a difficult situation because now I don't know what to do with it. We don't have really have a garage that's designed yet for 3 trucks. So one of the things we'll talk about tonight is outfitting the van ambulance as well on the capital expenditure plan. But right now, Irving has offered to house the 3rd vehicle, the van ambulance, in their facility at no charge to us going forward until we figure out what we're doing with the public safety building and so on and so forth. So that's exciting news that hopefully by the end of this fiscal year, beginning of next fiscal year, as well as when we start the agreement with Gill, we will have a new ambulance to be utilizing. And that vehicle, again, was purchased out of our excess revenue fund with no cost to the taxpayer at this point.
Anytime that we talk about growth, I know one of the big fears in the community is, if our ambulance is in another town, what happens? I can happily say that last year we had 850 plus calls. We put our own truck on every single one of those calls that was in one of our contracted towns. There were times when I had more personnel, including the motorcycle accident, than I did ambulances. I could have staffed, when we had a very large incident in Northfield, I could have staffed 4 ALS paramedic trucks with our people, and we had 2. And we ended up providing paramedics for other ambulances. We had a phenomenal year, we have a phenomenal crew, and we continue to grow. Just as a caveat, as we think about expansion and everything else, 3rd truck will make it a little bit easier to make sure that we have vehicles for our providers to go take care of patients in.
So the goal has sort of changed from when I initially had put the request in, where we were going to dispose of the 3rd ambulance, the van ambulance. However, we've come to realize is that the amount of money that we would get for that truck in comparison to the value that it could actually offer to our communities for service, keeping it makes more sense than it is to get rid of it. We are looking to downgrade the van from a paramedic truck to a BLS level truck that'll be housed in Irving. And then keep the 2 paramedic trucks here in town available to our staff out of our station until we hopefully get them all under one roof in the new public safety building. We are currently waiting for the Collins Center to stop dragging their feet on the study that we've proposed that started last May. In which we're looking at all the communities that are involved as to how we want to possibly structure EMS going forward. Come up with some ideas whether we want to move to continue to be a Northfield owned and operated organization that we then sell ourselves to these other communities, or do we want to think about going into a collaborative organization such as a South County ambulance model, whatever it is. And we're waiting for the answers from the Collins Center study before we move forward on that. I can tell you is that we do have one eager and interested and well-funded organization that would be interested in purchasing Northfield EMS because of what we have to offer. I'm not sure. I would caution any Northfield resident to think that if we were to sell the organization, that would be the right move to think about. Once you are no longer driving the truck and now you are a passenger, you start to have to pay the tolls if you're riding in the back seat. So what you might be getting for free right now, it might cost you something down the line. So I would caution anybody if they think that might be a good option. But so right now, what we really need to do is we need to think about staffing. Staffing is really where we need to be going forward. We have more and more call volume to help pay for staffing. And we have a very good model, like what Cam is saying. We were 100% last year. We didn't have to call mutual aid into any of our contracted towns, not even once, which is an absolutely unheard of statistic around the county. You listen to some of the other ambulance services that are out there, and I got some numbers today from, like, example, Gill as an example, their primary ambulance provider. They did 100 and I forget exactly what the number was. They basically had 60% of their calls went to mutual aid last year, with us doing 40% of them. So there's a lot of ambulance services right now that are struggling, and we are very fortunate to have what we have, especially at the ALS level that we have. The problem that I foresee with it, what keeps me up at night, is that it's not a sustainable model. What we have here relies solely on a few dedicated members of the organization. Myself, Cam, Todd, Becca, but none of us are getting any younger. And there's not this huge inrush of people coming into the organization on a voluntary basis. So we need to get to a model where we actually have paid staffing, where if somebody decides to leave, we have a mechanism to backfill and keep the organization alive. That's the one piece that keeps me up at night, is not having the sustainable model going forward. One of the things that you'll see when we start talking about the budget here is I've added some money into some of the salary lines to start building that process where we can actually start to have an incentive for somebody to want to come in here and take over the organization. I use myself as an example. It's not about me wanting a $20,000 salary. And that was just a number that I put in there just to start the process. It's more of, we have to start to have something to incentivize the future people that come into the organization. When I leave and I don't do this for free anymore, who's going to do it? You got to have some way of getting some people in, entice them into the position. So my goal for the next year is long-term growth and long-term sustainability. That's always been my two major goals. It's making it sustainable at the lowest cost to the taxpayer possible. And right now, this year, we're looking at still continue to do what we're doing at no cost. Once we get the Collins Center study back, there might be other discussions about some additional costs going forward, but we're not there yet. So.
Quick question is, when is the Collins Center study anticipated completion?
I'll reach out to them again. They did complete the financial piece. They did a lot of review of pieces in the area, a lot of survey, and then they switched to the financial model to see what the full costs of, analyzing their budget, analyzing what budget changes might occur, analyzing all the pieces. And then the last thing they were doing when I spoke to them last, and I have to confess with budgets, I have not reached out to them in several weeks, but I will tomorrow. I'm going to shoot them an email and make a note. Was other models. They're now looking around the area to see what other models there are, because there is South County, there's Hilltown, so there's a few other models that are around us. What would that look like? What would make that most sense? And knowing that we're moving into a facility, how would that impact if you went to a district? Would you pay rent? Would you give credit? Would you So there's all these moving pieces. So we knew we weren't going to have it this year to implement anyway, because by the time we got it, we wouldn't have the budget ability to make that change. But because you're going to need to go to towns, they'd have to sign on, there might be town meeting vote. So it wasn't going to happen this year. But the idea is to get everything in place so that if the select board and Mark and finance, everyone gets together at the table and starts to look at what the option is, we have a year to look at what that model would be.
So are they all, I know you mentioned South County as a potential model. Are they also looking at potential model like some communities have done, has gone to fire EMS joint venture?
Well, I mean, that's
together
on the town, and I think that's a discussion that once you move into the new building, or in anticipation of moving into the new building is going to come up. I know that it's already kind of, I think, on a lot of people's radar. It certainly was when we did that study a while back that kind of kicked things off. When we looked at police, fire, and EMS in terms of longevity, that was a different study that was done. That was to look also at the the basics of getting into a single facility. And one of the things that came out of that was there's a distinct possibility that you want to do at fire and EMS. That's a very common merger. In fact, it's more common to be together than apart, except when you do a district or something. Then they're separate. But so yes, I think that model is something the town would have to think about as well. And that might be, if you're going to do that, then you're probably looking at a chief who is an employee of the town. That doesn't mean you might not still under that chief do EMS services, fees for service to other communities. But it's certainly out there because it makes a whole lot of sense as you're moving into this kind of model.
And there's also more grants for staffing that way too. Is once you
Yes.
get into a fire-based model, I've been sending to Mallory notifications from the AFG Assistance to Firefighters Grant from the Fed and stuff of opportunities for grants and stuff.
There's
But of course
staffing
we can't use them from an EMS perspective because we're not fire.
Yeah.
But you could hire firefighters today, put them in the station up there. If they happen to drive the white truck compared to the red truck, it is what it is. But at the same point in time right now, because I can't apply for that grant because I'm not designated a fire chief. So.
Right,
Well,
we
I
have
think-
2 grants out right now. We're waiting to hear from USDA on $48 or so thousand to assist in the ambulance, the purchase of the ambulance. Although we fully funded it, if we do get that funding, and we don't know, it's a possibility. We just see that as kind of that money stays in the ambulance enterprise fund. We also applied for the Assistance to Firefighters grant for the $120,000 that Skip talked about for the packs
CBA,
that gear. So we haven't heard back from that, but that also went in.
No, I'm just interested if they're looking at various models, obviously, not
Yeah.
just solely like a South County model or some of the others.
I don't think there's anything that's not off the table. Let's put it that
Right.
way.
Okay.
And that's something the town has to think about. I mean, to some extent, by him saying that you need to start looking at the cost of these salaries, does it make sense to go to a full-time chief who runs both departments at some point, because you're in the same building now? And then you have a dedicated employee who does recruitment, training, budgeting, and that's their job. And that allows them to bolster and support the department in ways that, although I think we have great volunteers, that allows that to be their job. And that their job is to run that department and train those people and keep staffing and manage in ways that when he talks about sustainability, I'm not sure going forward in this world, it's very hard to sustain volunteer models.
Yeah,
People
that was
just-
another question I was going to have.
Right.
We all know volunteerism can only go so far, but it's
Yeah.
becoming more and more difficult
Yes.
to man.
These jobs are more and more professional.
To staff.
More and more
Police,
professional.
fire, EMS, they're all getting increasingly difficult, especially on the volunteerism.
The
because-
reporting,
yeah.
the standards, we're now OSHA standard. I mean,
Yeah.
just keeping up with all of that. You didn't have that when you were volunteers.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's becoming increasingly difficult for anyone to do that. And now we'll have a new facility which could enable a better transition at some point.
Well, the other thing too is brought up was your assistant brought up the issue of the call volume. It's obvious that having a volunteer system with 850 calls in a calendar year is untenable to do that continuously, and probably with call volume, especially you're now taking other communities, it's going to increase. So obviously personnel are going to be more and more of an issue to answer these calls. So we all know that where this in the future is where it's going. So,
And
Right.
we have seen some crossover now too. We've got some people who are in fire who are learning, starting as EMTs, getting basic EMTs. So there's a certain logic to looking at the model.
It takes a transition in, we'll call it, for lack of a better word, mentality from the old school of I'm a firefighter and that's all I do. I eat smoke and spit water, compared to nowadays where you got to play both sides of the fence to be successful.
Locally, if you're looking for a full-time fire job where you want to be a firefighter 40 hours a week, good luck trying to find one if you're not an EMT, and especially nowadays if you're not a paramedic.
Right.
Exactly.
So we're going to be faced with the same thing.
Well, you can see obviously you're increasing your salary areas because you wish to increase your staffing. Why don't you address that?
Yeah. So the first bunch of line items here are all the positions within the EMS organization. Obviously, the EMS director's salary. Looking to increase it from the $4,336 to $20,000, and that was just a number that I picked up because I see that the rec commission secretary is getting the promotion to $20,000, and I also looked in the paper the other day and I see that the one firefighter in Leiden is now in the $5,000 a year stipend. So the fact that the one firefighter in Leiden is getting paid more than the guy running a 24-hour-a-day paramedic service.
Rankles a bit more.
What's that?
It rankles a bit.
A little bit. And again, it's not about the money as it is. It's starting to create a situation where an organization post Mark Fortier, there's an opportunity for somebody that wants to come in and take this position. Moving Cam's salary from $1,759 up to $10,000. Again, just moving some numbers, and I know that the town is going through a study at this point for the positions as well. Whatever comes out of that, we would consider that as well. So the next line item is the EMS wages, and that's a roll up of all of the different sort of line items that we have related. And I think that ties into this spreadsheet. I don't know if you guys have it or not. This is what Andrea put together.
No, this one. I don't know why it still says 422. I thought I changed
It's always a little difficult
at the
because I
bottom.
put my number in and then she takes it and puts the COLA in and we come up with two different numbers. But but at the end of the day, it's basically the same thing. So the 420, so it's 413 according to
It
this.
is, if you look at the bottom total.
413.
That actually should feed
Yep.
back up.
Let me see if I stuff it.
They're supposed to be linked, but I must have used the other spreadsheet. Should feed right back up. The 413,263 should feed up into the top.
So our staffing model today is that we are trying to pay full hourly rate for somebody to be, two people actually, to be in the station Monday through Sunday, so 7 days a week, 8 a.m. to midnight. 16 hours out of the day, we have two people dedicated to the town of Northfield and our communities in the station, ready to run that first truck out the door on any call. And that's how we're able to manage the 862 calls. So we're doing that we have one town employee that's hired, that's Becca. She's been hired as a town employee, she gets town benefits. And then we have one gentleman who is working full-time hours, but he is not taking insurance through the town because his wife gets it from UMass. She's on state. So we are getting the benefit of having a full-time employee without having to pay the health insurance piece of it. He is getting PTO off the books, sort of a thing. So we're able to fill the 7 days, for the most part, with two full-time 40-hour-a-week positions. That's one person. And then we are backfilling a second person who is normally a basic EMT to fill in the station as well for that 16 hours. On the overnight from midnight to 8 a.m., we have budgeted two people at half hourly rate to be on call, meaning that you're not in the station, but you are dedicated to the town and the ambulance service by being paid a half hourly rate stipend to be on call. And that's two people. The call comes in, the pager goes off like it happened earlier. People come in, take the truck, and go on the call. And then in addition to that, I have buried in this number $15,000 additional dollars for second call, overtime. If somebody, one of the full-timers goes beyond their 16, I'm going to pay them overtime. multi-call, second call. So there's additional money in there as well. After taking into consideration the COLA, that's how Andrea came to the 413,263, which is the number that's in the
Yeah.
line item up here.
Up on their main sheet, you'll see it.
I know it's kind of confusing, but does that make sense? This is how we're trying to keep 2 people dedicated to the community 24 hours a day. Now, it's one thing to budget for all these hours, and we can do that. To be successful in staffing is a whole different ballgame. Is getting people that want to do that. Like, for example, I'll be home. I won't put myself on call. I'll get paid when the pager goes off and I go on a call, but I'm not necessarily collecting a stipend to be on call. Does that make sense? And we use the town's 2-hour minimum call out rate whenever you go on a call. So that's that number. My ALS coordinator, training captain doesn't change because she was already got a boost here a while back. And then the 3 other captains, I increased their line item a little bit just to help shore that up a little bit more from what it was. Any questions about the salaries and wages before we move on?
No, the only question I have, you had the salary wages are clear, is that how many additional personnel are going to be actually added to your budget to staff your ambulance service?
So when you say added to staff,
No, how many individuals are you looking to add? Any additional full-time personnel to your overall staffing, or are you just going to be basically adding people? They're basically being on call.
so right now with this budget model, there is no added full-time staff members.
Okay.
That's not in that proposal.
Okay.
I would, and maybe it's a conversation we have offline, is look at actually making Todd an actual recognized full-time
Right.
town employee. Because
He
right
works
now
enough hours that we have to treat him legally as a full-time personnel. We just haven't officially created a second position to put him in.
Right.
But essentially that he's already doing.
he's
the
already
job.
being paid. I mean, we're covering it with the enterprise fund. There's no
It's,
additional cost.
it's included in here essentially, but
Right.
it's not officially a
Not an
second
official
position.
town.
As far as the other employees too, we're constantly recruiting and accepting applications for EMTs and other non-full-time members. They don't get added into like our total budgeted because they only get paid if they either go on a call or pick up a shift. They're responsible for their own training, with the exception of the 2 things that are required by the state that we actually do reimburse, which are like $125. But like all their continuing education hours, they're non-compensated. They come in, you have to keep it in order to get your license, and so they don't get added into that salary.
So with that said, I would gladly have a roster of 100 willing volunteers. They only can. There's only so many shifts that we have that are paid.
Right,
So
all the
we're
shifts are the
limited
hours
to
in
the
there.
shifts. But to have a roster of people that we could say, hey, I'm taking a vacation this week. Oh, I got it. I can fill in whatever it is. That would be fantastic. We're not there yet either. We're at like 22, 23 people, I think,
Yeah.
right now.
And we use a scheduling software for those shifts where they go in and they bid on it in advance, and then like this configuration of like whether or not there's enough hours, and then they get their shifts based on that. But those shifts are always open. Sometimes we don't have people that can fill them, and it's not like we hold somebody over from the day before. It's just now we're relying on the pager or.
And that's how we can actually afford to do this, is by having a number of shifts within the budget that are not actually filled. They go unpaid to help offset the difference between what our expected revenue is compared to what our actual expenditures are. So part of the management of the organization. That answer the question? Excellent. All right. Continuing down the list here, we bumped electricity a little bit. As everybody knows, electricity's gone out of sight. Heating oil, gone out of sight. Building maintenance and supplies, just because everything in the world's gone up, we've added some money there. Vehicle maintenance, we obviously went up a little bit. We've had some unexpected issues with the trucks. Obviously, more wear, more tear, more maintenance, and obviously, if we had a third truck, we'll have to add some more to that as well. But I think we're still in a good spot there. Building lease. So right now, as you know, we are renting the EMS building from Sandring Incorporated. We have entered into the first of our 3-year agreement that we just signed with them. We have, because we're looking at building the new building, year 1 and year 2 are guaranteed. Year 3 is an option, depending on whether we need to continue to rent it or not. But obviously they have an escalation every year, so that's what that $1,000 is to go up on what they are charging us as well for the building. Professional training. So I've gone up $2,000 on that because I'd like to actually start to incentivize some of our BLS providers to maybe go on to the paramedic course. Obviously, as an ALS organization, we have a mechanism today where we're paying people to go to get their basic EMT to help get them in the door. It's a good start, but the longevity is we need more paramedics, and that's an 18-month course. Costs about $15,000 to $18,000 down at GCC. I'd like to start using some money to incentivize some people to pay for some books or pay for a couple classes, whatever it is out of that, to get them to go to the paramedic course. And obviously we would do the same thing as we're doing from the BLS side, is that if you take that money, you sign into an agreement that we own you for a couple of years before you can just walk away. So continuing down, office supplies gone up a little bit. Diesel fuel, we added some more money there. We went from $2 or something a gallon to $4.40 a gallon on the town bid. Other charges, medical supplies. Medical supplies, we went up a little bit. We went down on other charges because we had buried in that number some money for purchases of the pagers, and we used the ARPA money last year to buy pagers for all fire and EMS employees. Mm-hmm. So I reduced that line item this year. And then we moved $15,000 out of the EMS wages account, which was the benefit money for the full-time employee. We moved it down to the insurance line just so we could have it separated out of the wages line. And
just so you know, part of that insurance is because he has the indirect costs, the same as you see a direct line for on wastewater if it says indirect cost. Mm-hmm. He's also paying indirect costs. We just didn't do it that way. For example, the insurance includes insurance for his vehicles, for his buildings, as well as now we have insurance,
111M.
Health insurance for, right, we have to pay the essentially workers' comp, 111F insurance. So they were paying for that indirect cost out of their budget. But I just wanted to pull the insurance cost out of the wages line item because that really shouldn't be in the wages.
Give us some more visibility.
Right, and if wages need to change or people need to change up and down, the insurance line item needs to stay the same as he has a full-time benefited position. So those are costs that need to come to the town reimbursed from EMS. So it's not really that like it's a $15,000 increase. He was paying for it out of his wage line item before. We just settled it into a better place where it's.
And then again at the bottom, there is no long-term debt principal number this year because the ambulance has been paid off, and EMS is debt-free at the moment. So in a nutshell, that is the proposed budget. Again, we think based on our revenue projection that I put together, again, they can try to figure out with my crystal ball what we think revenue is going to be. We think that we're close enough where we can do this without requesting any money from the town.
Mark, based on your revenue projection, I see you have listed, obviously, you had town of Irving assessment, $15,000. You had the Town of Gill assessment, 15,000, but there's no listing for Bernardston.
So the Bernardston deal was initially $10,000 to go into the ambulance donation account. That is still sort of the idea. However, the last time that we just signed a new updated agreement with them probably last year at the same time we did Irving, and the wording allows us to take that money instead of putting it into the donation account for a new ambulance to actually put it into the operation. However, I think it would be in our best interest to continue to put that money into the donation for a future ambulance account as a replacement. Now, the good news is that when I approached Chief Shed and said, $10,000 is what the number is, he goes, "We love you guys. Our select board loves you guys. You guys are doing a fantastic job. That number needs to be higher." So this year's assessment will actually, at their request, will be 12,500 compared to 10,000. And I can also tell you, is in our conversations with Gill, the 15,000 that they have, Randy Crozier on their select board has made it very clear that he doesn't want it to stay stagnant. He wants to see it escalate every year as well. So there's no big magic change all of a sudden in 1 year. And in Irving, they think it's the best deal in town. I mean, they're getting assessed $50,000 a year from Orange just for one half of their town. So the fact that we're able to do what we're doing at the cost that we're doing that is absolutely amazing. And these communities see it, understand it, and love it. So they are expecting there to be an increase at some point in time. And I try and tell them is when we get the Collins Center information back, then we'll have those discussions as to what the true numbers really need to be. But I don't want to be the one to throw a number out there until we have some actual study that shows what that number really needs to be.
When is that study due again?
That's a very
Hopefully
good question.
soon. In the next
Any
few.
day now?
I think we'll
6 months
probably
ago,
have
but-
another meeting with them probably before we'll get that. But I'm going to email them again tomorrow and see where we're at. I did talk to them. It's probably been a month because I've been in budget, but when we were doing the financial piece and we were going over, everything. We were breaking down the cost of everything, and they knew they were talking to the treasurer, they were talking to the accountant, because they were trying to get an actual true indirect cost assessment based on retirement, OPEB. They were reached out to our OPEB provider to break out OPEB because they don't all do that.
Right.
They look at the town list and they say, here's your OPEB, estimates, but that includes, for example, the full-timer, and so that requires pulling some threads out. So they were doing that last I talked to them. So I'm going to email them and see where we're at now. We should be at a point where we probably need to meet with them, and they then were going, like I said, to look at some other models, and now they need to feed our information and what we're doing into those models, and it's time for us to meet and have a real discussion about what those models could be for.
And once we get that report back, how soon until we pull the trigger on the information they give us?
Well, it depends on what the select board and EMS and finance, what everyone decides is the
And
best way to
departments.
go, and those could require, it could require town meeting votes. Those could be an organization that everyone has to join, and they have to do it by town meeting vote. So we're anticipating it won't be this fiscal year,
Okay.
because it may take a whole year to put in place whatever those agreements are, whatever that district looks like, whatever. And you could come back and
And
find that you could just tweak this model, and maybe this is the best. We don't
We
know.
don't know.
I think best case scenario would be is if we get the information back sooner rather than later, we could have some discussions over the summer, and then by next fiscal year, so July 25, is that the number?
It'll be 2024.
24, July of
Fiscal
24,
25.
we should be able to pull a trigger on something.
Well, I think that gives us all the rest of summer and fall to work out what that looks like before everyone goes back into budget season, December and January. So everybody knows what's coming. Right from the beginning of budget season. It's too late to pull that number now. Everyone's doing their
Close.
budget.
Right. Okay.
Right, and people need time to figure out,
Yep.
Right.
Okay.
how that's gonna work.
Do any of my fellow members of the Finance Committee have any questions about their overall budget presentation?
I do not.
Is that an insurance increase there that's included include the new ambulance too.
Correct. That would cover all of our insurances from employee insurances to what we're paying for employee benefit insurances to vehicle
We
insurances.
insure, and we insure the
liability
building because we have
insurances.
all, you know, we have to, even though it's a rental, we have to cover as a tenant. And so, yeah, it's all the
It can't
insurances.
be cheap to insure an ambulance.
I don't know that it's that expensive, but when you just, you know, mostly
liability.
it's, the most big expenses you're gonna find are, injured on duty, which is really not what they are. They're 111F, which is a different, but it's injured on duty is the terminology. But when you talk about fire, police, and EMS, there's some liability, some issues there with injured on duty. So your insurance is always gonna be, that's all factored in.
Now, Mark, I see the paperwork. You have a capital project request you're putting forward.
Yes, sir. So, what we were talking about earlier was taking the van ambulance, the 2007 van ambulance, which has about 36,000 miles on it total. It's the engine is fine. It's an older truck. It's 20 something years old. 2007, 17, 27, whatever. It will be 20 years old. You know, as we look at the different models, we don't know what we don't know yet. So we want to keep that. It would make more sense for us to keep that truck if for the possibility of utilizing it. So what we're looking to do is downgrade that truck to BLS, and when we get the new truck, have our two primary ambulances, the 2017 and then it will be the 2022, out of our station up here, and then that 2007 van would go to Irving. In order to do that, we just don't have a third set of gear for the truck. One of the biggest expenses to put that truck together is buying a new radio, mobile radio, on the new 800 Comers system, which is it was like $6,000 of that money that I'm looking for.
5928.
$59.28. That is just for the purchase of a radio to go in that truck. I think that we can easily downgrade it with the request I have is for $15,000 to come out of the excess revenue that's already been certified at $178,000. So basically, we just want to take the money that we already have generated, utilize that to outfit the third truck, and keep it available so that for it's a more of a mechanical spare in case one of our trucks goes down. We have a second truck that we can utilize, as well as it's still licensed at the BLS level. If for some reason we have multiple patients, we can still get that truck to roll, and we can still utilize it. We're adding to staff 3 of the full-time Irving firefighters, Chief Wonka, as well as the 2 Brandon Briel and Ryan Betters, to our staff. And their purpose is they have to be an EMT, which they are, but they have to be on our licensure in order for them to be utilized as one of our responders nowadays. COVID was fantastic. We were able to utilize a first responder as a driver at the paramedic level. That's going away with the COVID restrictions going away. So we now are back to having to have certified people on the truck to actually drive the truck, which is a whole other crazy state of Massachusetts.
So obviously this capital item will come from his enterprise fund.
Yeah, he
The other
wants to
thing
take
is,
it out of
just
his
a quick
enterprise.
question for clarification. Would this be going before as an article on town meeting warrant?
Yes,
Okay,
it's a separate article.
gotcha. Any questions?
Nope.
Mark, thank you very much for your time, the information. I appreciate you coming before us with your budget.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Any questions, let me know. Thank you.
Alrighty. Next in line to come before us is the 350th Anniversary Committee. And the only thing we ask of you, would you please identify yourselves for the record before the Finance Committee? We'd appreciate it.
Absolutely. I'm Stacy Bond. I'm the chair of the 350th.
I'm Lindsay McCarthy, and I'm the treasurer.
All right.
We have our community engagement here as well.
All righty. Well, go ahead and present your.
Well, sorry, I just came from teaching a class, so my brain's all gonna shift gears here. So, Yeah, we're asking 11,980. And last year when we got the amount from the town, we were tried to be very diligent in only asking what we felt were real tangible items. And I think we did a really good job. We all, last year too, we really only asked what was asked like 50 years ago for the 300. And as you guys hopefully have seen, we've started off with a bang. We knew that there would be certain things that were going to come up last minute, and they did. And so we just need a little extra to give the town the best anniversary that we can give them.
Alrighty then. Well, like I said, I know that you've started. I've seen, it's been obviously publicized, and you're getting activity on that, and we appreciate your efforts that you've put forward for the benefit of the town of Northfield. And any of our members of the committee have any questions?
Not on the 350th, I do not.
I got a question not related to the budget.
Sure.
Who's in charge of the planting of the tree? That was one of the things in
The tree 50th.
350th?
Yeah.
It's Judy Wagner.
Wagner or Wagner?
Wagner
Yep,
Right.
and Martha Tenney
in Market Town.
Okay.
from the Northfield Garden Club.
Because I've got my daughter's a certified
Arborist. Oh, excellent.
and was at one time, not now, but was head of the tree planting thing in West Haven and this kind of stuff. And so if you wanted some, I've already talked to her about this, but if you wanted some advice on the kinds of trees,
Does she live locally?
well, she's down in Connecticut, but
Oh, okay.
but she would come up and she said she'd be happy to
Oh, excellent. We'll get her
lend
in
her
touch.
expertise if you think you would need that.
I
Excellent.
could get Judy in touch with you, and
Yeah,
you want to pass it
That'd
on
be
to
fine.
her?
That'd
Okay,
be fine.
yeah, I
I can
can
get
do
in touch with you.
Thanks, Tony.
I can do that.
That's-
Excellent.
that's
Thank
what I
you.
was trying to say, that's all.
You all set? Well, I have no further questions. I wish you the best of luck for the rest of your activities for this year, and we look forward to partaking in them. And the other thing I have to say is, as of tonight, we do not vote on yes or no. What we do is we review it, and then we'll have a discussion in the future. And again, we make a recommendation or not recommend, but we do appreciate you coming before us and presenting us.
Yeah, thank you. I just also wanted to say that our kickoff, I know, brought in about, I think there's 3,000 people in town, and we probably saw like a equivalent to a third of the town in just the kickoff weekend. And I know that Bea was excited about some of the articles in the newspaper and stuff, saying that she was feeling like there was a nice, in the town of Northfield, everyone's just feeling like a real rejuvenance of, excitement and stuff that we sort of haven't had in a while. So, just we're thinking we're doing a good job, and we want to, and we think we're being good stewards of the money as well. In a perfect world, we'd love to be able to send a little bit back. We'll see what happens, but I think we're doing a really good job of, being careful also.
Well, we also do appreciate all the volunteers and who put in the time and effort into the 350th, because again, it's
a
pretty much
beast.
It's a
It's a
volunteer
beast.
operation. and again, the town benefits from
And if you
that,
go
so
to
we
the
do
website, you
appreciate
can
that.
see all
That's
the
our goal.
activities. It's quite
Our
incredible.
goal is to as much benefit to the town as we can.
No.
So
Well, thank you.
thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
I'm gonna still sit here for the next one.
Yes. You're not going too far away.
Yeah.
You're trying to be efficient.
Yeah, which I appreciate. Let's see.
I think I got more stickers on. Oh no, this is my other one. the other one that we use for the meetings. My whole back is covered with stickers. This is mine. Oh, mine's right on camera. It's got all these stickers on it. It's my old laptop from home.
All right. Again, please introduce yourself. This is the representatives of the Rec Commission to present their budget.
This is Joshua Roman with the Chair of the Rec Commission, and our go ahead.
Yeah, that's okay. I'm Stacy Bond, and I'm the secretary/director.
Super. Well, present your budget.
So our budget, we've increased our offerings a lot since COVID, and our rebound I think has been incredible. It's a lot of new committee members, and we're making things happen. I think the town is starting to take notice. We're offering a wider variety of programs for both youth participants and adult participants. So we're trying to make it a full committee or a full town recreation committee, not just takes care of the kids' sports. And that's kind of my vision and the whole committee's vision, to offer it to the whole town, not just youth.
Yeah, and it's taken a lot of time and effort to get everything back up and running. And in addition, we have the summer program that has been a real challenge to get that back up and running as well. And so that's on top of kind of bringing everything from the ground up just in general, and then trying to make it even better. We're also trying to bring back this summer program as well, which we actually have some job descriptions for finally, and things like that we're going to be presenting at the select board meeting with a packet. But yeah, I mean, we have pickleball. I mean, I've got people that are there, like there's 16-ish people that come to pickleball twice a week. They pay for the year, and they can just come play whenever they want. We've got yoga, Pilates, we've got dance aerobics. These are all for the adults, mind you.
We have an adult sport just drop-in night once a week throughout the year. So currently we're doing basketball. We're going to switch to a spring sport eventually. We'll go back to softball in the summer. So that's another thing that adults can drop in and just basically kind of like adult gym class.
And we're streamlining everything. We have our website too. So we're asking everyone to go to the website to sign up even for the free classes, so they can get their waivers done and we can get them in our system. So it's just quick and easy, emailing people with cancellations. I just did actually this afternoon a whole thing about, what's next, what we got going on. So advertising, we got, Facebook, Nextdoor, we're doing advertising on that. We're just running on all cylinders right now, which is great because it hasn't been that way for a long time for various reasons and COVID. So,
And then the other thing you go to the youth sports. I mean, our participation is almost half of the elementary school at every season. So, I mean, that's a huge amount of kids that we're
and I had a parent
serving
just recently that was just, you guys have been doing so much for my kid. Like, we helped her out a little bit because they're very tight on money, and just like trying to make things work for this particular family. And her child also was struggling with cheerleading, and she says the coaches have been so patient. Like, I can't wait to see what you guys have next. And
Yes, they do cheerleading.
We're now offering cheerleading, and just last year we repainted and the ball fields. We're working on redoing the ball fields. We're trying to put in a softball field over West Northfield for the softball team. We got the softball girls new a bunch of new stuff last year with the use it or lose it money, basically. We're just trying to bring back some fun and exercise and stuff to the town that was badly needed.
So with all these increases in what we're offering, our budget request is increased. I wouldn't say a significant amount, but a little bit. So I guess the biggest thing is our program directors of the past have all left quickly because there just isn't enough hours offered to accomplish the things that are being asked of them. So we've increased the number of hours to the maximum that we can without being a full-time benefited position. And that's reflected in the program director wages. And then some of the other increases that I can go off the top of my head is the porta potty that's down at the elementary school now as a service to the town. We're going to leave that there year round, and that's $200
It's amazing that porta potty. It's surprising how many people need it, use it,
Yeah.
and like have complained when it's not there.
Yeah. So that's another increase that's instead of being there for 6 months is now going to be there for 12 months. So that's another reason for an increase. Some of the instructors that we hire in is outside. We've budgeted for them. Some of that is revenue neutral because we will bring in some money to pay for some of that to offset some of the costs. But some weeks you have a full class, some weeks you have, only a couple that don't pay for it. And even so, she's very reasonable. Our instructor that's charging us $35 a class. So, am I missing anything?
Oh, there's so much.
Yeah. The cost of the mowing of the fields, I guess that's just a set cost that we don't negotiate. It's just a contract that's.
We did 3-year bid on that one.
Yeah.
So it'll come up. Is this going to be our 3rd year? Can't remember now.
No,
It's a
second, I
year.
think. I mean, I think we make some money on the kids programs. They still get T-shirts and stuff like that, and we still don't charge. It's only like $45. I think the softball we end up charging probably the most, but that's because they also have a league fee that they have for some reason that the others don't. So, but again, that's like $65 for the whole season. I mean, so it's really pretty nominal, and we typically make some money off of that as well. And the summer program will also be, we will charge what we need to charge in order so that we can make it even. And
Yeah, that goes through a revolving.
revolving, yeah.
So the idea is to charge enough to cover the expenses for that program.
Yeah, and we also are now, because pickleball's been so popular, and that's like twice a week, and then we also have the weight room stuff. We're switching the job description to just an attendant, a recreation attendant, because we need somebody that can be there to these, obviously to clean up, set up, and make
Open
sure.
the doors.
Oh, right, just make sure people have what they need and stuff like that. So we have that going on as well.
Right. So the wages, because you had somebody who was once a week for the weight room, is now running
Twice a
multiple. Well, but running multiple
Yeah.
programs
Right, and-
because
Right.
you're doing pickleball twice a week
Yep.
alone. Plus
Right.
you're still doing the weight room.
Yep.
Right.
Plus you're still, so that position has become more general instead of weight room attendant becoming a rec, attendant, so that there's somebody from the town available when you're opening the gyms.
And we
Somebody's
understand
there.
we're not a business, we're not doing this to try to make tons of money off people. I mean, could we? We might be able to, but that's not our jobs. But
That's not your mission.
That's
Your
not our
mission is to
mission.
provide
Right.
recreational
The town
services to the
Yep.
townspeople.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so, but we do try to make enough to sort of just float it, so as much as we can.
All of our coaches are all volunteers. That's a lot of hours that they're putting into
Yeah.
coaching all over
And we got
sports.
lots of.
We have a good
We have a
group
great
of
group
coaches
of
right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Always looking for more though.
Absolutely.
Where is the pickleball? Is it in the gym?
It's in the
at
gym.
Pioneer?
Yep.
At
Yep.
Pioneer
Josh
or-
and I did some. Well, it was Bob maybe, but
Yeah,
we did some
at the
taping.
elementary school.
Yeah.
gym. Yep.
Yep. Yeah, that's really popular right now.
So I guess that's all you had.
I think so.
Okay.
Well, any questions from the members?
Yeah, obviously the last couple of years, the request wasn't very much because of COVID.
No.
Right.
Do you have anything for previous years? I mean, before COVID?
Well, so this is an all-new committee also, so there's nobody on this committee besides, and I'm not technically on it, but I was only on it for I was on it when Teresa was the chair, but only towards the very end, and that was right as COVID was sort of coming in. So unfortunately, we're all brand new basically from this committee, but we all have kids in the school and stuff too, so we know a lot of what had happened, what was going on and stuff, which is all very well run. But what we're doing now is more than what was before. We're offering more programs, than other than the summer program, but that's on its way to getting itself back on its feet. That program in itself is a challenge because the person who ran it was a single person that ran it for like 20 years and did it, a certain way. And when COVID hit, it was like, see ya, not that, I mean, she did all legit and everything. It's just that it was like, dropped off and done. And then COVID hit. And so we have really just piles of, it's like, how do we, so it's been a challenge.
It's going from sort of a private vendor situation to a town-run program.
Yes,
so
thank you for making that sound.
So they're creating it from sort of the ground up.
Yes.
In a different way. And so one of the things, I started, I've been here 4.5 years, 4 years now. Hard to believe, it's gone fast. There was more money in this budget at one time. For example, they used to have they dropped like 6,000 or 7,000 because they dropped that program that registered kids because they thought, oh, well, we don't need that. We're not using it a lot. And then one of the expenses you guys have back is to put that program back. And there's just no way to manage baseball sign up, soccer sign up without putting in that people go on a website, they sign up, they make their payments. Right. So that's actually coming back. It was actually there at one time. So this budget fell.
Is that the myrec.com?
Yes.
Yes.
So that was in there at one time. This program was, when I started, this budget was not 12,500. I have to go back and look, but it was closer to 20. They actually cut things, and then now they've realized we're running too many programs. We can't. We've got to have that software because otherwise somebody's manually signing people in, trying to collect checks, making sure that coaches
building rosters.
Yeah. So that alone was I'm pretty sure a pretty big expense in the purchase services. They're putting back in a software package to actually register participants for things because it was gone. It was a noble gesture, but I think they quickly realized when they started to pick back up. I mean, COVID hit for a year or two and nobody thought about it because nobody was doing anything. So now it's back and they're like, oh, this is just not going to work. So that needed to come back. So the budget wasn't this low. At one point it was actually higher. And I think that was all just kids programming. I mean, when I started, it was just literally soccer, softball, basketball. I think that was it for the kids programming. And that's all they ran. So nobody was overseeing. And I think the weight room attendant had once a week.
It was only like once a week. There was a Zumba class at one point too.
But I think it was a pay-as-you-go more thing. That wasn't even really not so much of a run activity as it was like pay and go kind of pay the instructor directly kind of thing. Right. So what they're doing now is a completely different animal in terms of recreation. Mm-hmm. They're running all sorts of adult recreation. They're running additional opportunities and even kids cheerleading and all this. So it's very expanded. So some of this is for new things. We've increased the wages, obviously, and there's an explanation down below because this person is not just doing once a week, going in for 2 hours. Now you're going pickleball twice a week, weight room once a week. You're getting upwards instead of 2 hours.
I feel bad for the school because we're like the gym. We're like. Can't you have any more spots open?
Yeah, I mean, they're utilizing a lot. And so, it's one of those things where, they've just, the way to do it for everybody is to ask to put the town to pay for it. Otherwise, they'd get into, everybody signs up, everybody pays a fee, they manage that. And even still, I think you have some fee stuff, certainly for the kids, like all the kids.
Yeah, all the kids are free, and there's certain
because there's T-shirts and equipment. But that's what people are paying for: the attendant, the ability to have the gym open, people to participate in all these things, and I'm sure the numbers of people participating.
I have a lot. I mean, people seem really happy with what we're offering. I think it's a nice variety, and it hits a bunch of different age brackets. And I get. I'm in communication with the senior center too about some of the stuff that they do to try to, offer variety. So
that's what you're looking at is catching up where we kind of were, at least with the signups for the kids, and then expanding programming.
The reason I asked was in case somebody looks at it and says, "Oh, look at how much."
Right.
I mean,
I think
I know it was higher before.
It was actually higher before COVID.
And it
was
isn't
it?
that much
I didn't know.
more, as you said, and with your offering so much more.
Yeah, and
We have
I
a
mean,
lot
it dropped
going
at least that 5,900 out of purchase services because they dropped that software.
Okay.
It may have even been closer to 7
Yeah.
when they dropped that software package. They dropped it way down because they weren't utilizing it.
Right.
Yeah.
So that money's kind of going back in. Where you're really seeing the increase is really in wages because you're paying people to do more.
But you're also asking, you're providing more services, so that's
Right,
equal
they're
to-
providing more
Yeah.
opportunities.
Which
So
people have been asking. People wanted more stuff. Like, and now I feel like we're giving them what they've been asking for.
Right.
You know, and there was like, you know, people have been asking me for pickleball. Well, we finally got pickleball going, and they were like, "Hey!" But it was like, and then the same thing with like Zumba or like an aerobics class. So people wanted the yoga Pilates, but they wanted the Zoom. And we finally got that going now too. So those were sort of my little stragglers.
So with the rejuvenation of this particular committee, with what you're offering the community, do you have any kind of head count of how many people are participating?
So I know I should have my
I mean,
laptop.
roughly?
Actually, it's in the car. Well, we do know that from let's see, the kids with the soccer and stuff was like 75 kids. I know that I get for pickleball, there's easily 16 people that show up each time, and that's twice a week. Let's see, the cheerleading was over 20 girls. These are all just numbers I just remember from
Annual report.
the annual report. The weight room is not super well attended, so we're going to probably see what we can do a little differently about that in the fall. That actually ends the end of March because it doesn't make sense we don't run it
Summer
during the
months.
summer months because
Right.
nobody comes. But that one hasn't been as well attended, so we might switch that to just like once a week or figure something, or maybe a different sort of advertising for that. Because I think weight room, I think people like to hear the exercise room
Yeah.
instead of weight room.
Intimidated
so,
by weights.
yeah, so something like that. I'm trying to think. Even just the free pickup basketball. I played the other day against like I think 5 Llewellyns, and so there was easily like 10 of us there or so for that.
When this past week we'd rented the pool over at Turner's Falls.
Oh yeah, that was a lot of fun.
And we I counted at least 40 kids in the pool at one point, and probably a dozen parents on the outside. So
That
that
was a big hit.
a
We
huge
were
hit.
thinking
And
of
they're
doing
already
that
asking,
for
can we do it
April
again in April?
vacation.
And that was a minimal expense, but definitely a worthwhile.
Right. Well, yeah,
pursuit.
we didn't even mention like the trips and stuff
Yeah.
that were like organized. So
Offering group trips at least once a season to some kind of an event, whether it's a baseball game, a hockey game, a basketball game.
and I can
things
see
like
the
that.
basketball. I mean, there was a first hoop, so like the little kids. There's a junior boys, senior boys, and then senior girl. And these are easily all 20-25 kids each group. And the senior girls are actually a combination of juniors and seniors because we didn't have quite enough. So they're probably more in the line. Yeah, they're probably like 25 still though. But that was about
When we went to the league meeting for basketball, all the other towns were saying our participation's down, and
Yeah, we had
came back and
multiple-
said we're up.
Yeah, we had
have-
multiple.
So the
teams
fact
as
that we're
opposed to, like,
growing as a program, and some of the other towns are declining.
Right.
So
Yeah, Irving
it's
wasn't even
encouraging.
sure that they would have it. She was trying to get us to get kids to send over to Irving so that they could have a team, which I was like, okay.
Any further questions from the board? Well, listen, thank you very much for presenting your budget and giving us an update on the Recreation Department's activities and services you're providing. And like I said, thank you.
Thank you very much
Thank you.
for listening to us.
So the softball game is now between the 350th Deerfield and
I've emailed Deerfield
That's a good idea.
2 times and they haven't gotten back to me. So
scared.
they're afraid
They have
of
a running
us.
scared.
So I don't know. Maybe it may end up being like what's that game where you throw the
Might do cornhole.
like a cornhole tournament or something. It'll be something.
Volleyball.
I know. I thought they have a volleyball net over there too.
'Cause that's-
Well,
I mean, I won't play basketball, but I play volleyball. So
yeah.
basketball's hard. Like if you don't really have any skill, volleyball you can fake it.
Right. Something will happen. I'll try calling
Bowling.
Deerfield and see.
Bowling
Email
somewhere,
it
right?
didn't work. So, at any rate, thank you, everyone.
There's in Buckland, we used to challenge children to bowling.
Yeah.
Bowling tournament.
All right, next on the agenda is review and approve minutes. The minutes for February 6, 2023. Because we don't have sufficient members present to have an official vote on those minutes, and because one member would have to abstain, we're going to postpone that. But we can have a vote on to approve the minutes of the February 13, 2023 meeting. And is there any questions on the minutes from that meeting?
No.
All right, not hearing any, could somebody make a motion for the approval of the minutes?
I make a motion that we approve the minutes of February 13th as written.
Dave McCarthy has made a motion to approve the minutes. I, Bernie Parada, second that motion. And we're going to have a vote. All in favor, please identify yourself and your vote.
Sue Kaczynski says yes.
Bernie Parada says yes.
Tony Mateo, yes.
David McCarthy, yes.
Thank you. Now, the next thing is the report on meetings attended representing the Finance Committee. Tony, I assume you've had any meetings?
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
Next meeting.
All right. Dave, anything?
Nope. No, sir.
Sue?
No?
All right. Myself, we have Andrea was part of the group. We had what's called a pre-qualification group meeting that we went through subcontractors for the new public safety building. We assisted in that process, and we completed that. At least did our work today, because we had a meeting earlier today at 3 o'clock. Everything went pretty smoothly on that issue. So that's one step, and then opening up the bids you're basically looking that the bidders are qualified to bid. They're not putting any actual bids in, they're just being pre-qualified. And we had to follow a certain regimen that's strictly specified. We've completed that. The OPM is going to then put all that together as a full, matrix, they call it. And we're going to have a further meeting next week on Monday, the 6th, I think, at 3 o'clock, Andrea?
I think so, yes.
And we're going to have an official meeting of the Emergency Services Building Committee this coming Wednesday at 4 o'clock. And that's basically the report from my end.
Where's that meeting going to be?
It's going to be here.
For Wednesday, yes. There'll be a meeting here Wednesday, 4 o'clock. This will be, I think,
Hybrid.
basically the final approval of sort of the specs to go out.
Yeah.
Because Monday we're going to do the qualified subbidder, and then once they do that, then the OPM will send those out, and then Wednesday they release the bids for the general contractors, and then once the general contractors get their bids, they are able to start negotiating with the subbidders to put together your general bid, which will be due later in, I didn't bring my timesheet, but it's due April 6th or something. Don't quote me on that.
Yeah, it's 2 to 3 weeks prior to the special town meeting.
Right,
Yeah.
a couple weeks prior, and a week or so prior. And so those will come in, and GCs will start working on their bids. The sub-bidders will have their bids, and they start putting the numbers together. There'll probably be a pre-bid meeting, before the bids are due for questions. And then there's always inevitably probably addenda released if there's a question that So the whole process will take till the beginning of April now.
Well, the one thing is the process has been going so far smoothly, and we're meeting our time frame that we have planned out for all this. So
We do have the planning board will be doing site review. They'll be releasing that meeting soon. I think the site review has been applied for. The application is in. That meeting will be scheduled by the planning board chair. The variance, because there's a slight 12-foot variance needed, that application is in, and that meeting will be scheduled by the ZBA all of this in the coming month, all in March probably. And the Conservation Commission will have, I know they're checking some flagging things between
Yeah,
their
I think this
people
week
and our
is the f-
people.
yeah.
And then that will come back to the Concom to vote their conditions on the, any conditions on the wetlands. So there's still 3 town committees that are part of the process in terms of the permitting and pieces, 3 town committees. Hopefully that's all happening in March, so that by the time we have things ready to go, getting them back, we'll have all of those sorted.
All right, well, thank you, Andrea. Is there any other updates that you may have to present to us?
No, I've made some changes according to the discussion tonight. I'm doing it while we're live here. And I will resend you the spreadsheet from tonight, because there's a few minor tweaks. But hopefully you're getting kind of familiar with this spreadsheet. I finally got the line item and the omnibus to actually match in terms of totals. That took some doing, just because the omnibus has some math that combines things. I had to make sure everything was combining properly. And so now you're starting to get a picture. There's still some budgets that aren't 100% in. Usually I flag those in yellow. If you see it in yellow, that usually means that it's not necessarily a firm number, because I just haven't received the assessment yet. That's like the school or the assessment. So yellow usually means I've put in something for a holding pattern. So this will start to tell you kind of where we're at, starting to fill in the articles so you can see what they are. There are a few missing there because I think you guys haven't voted on anything, but anything you want to vote on we will do. I talked to the chair and your vice chair, and I think your next meeting has the assessor, the treasurer collector, the assessors, and then the general town budget, which is me. Those are really the last pieces of town budget that you haven't met with. And that would pretty much fill in the town budget. We're still waiting, obviously, for the school, which should be coming very soon. And the FERCog budget, I think, is the last assessment one that has a few pieces, including the regional nurse, including the basics. And then that'll go in. It'll be pretty close to a real budget then, like final numbers. And at that point, I think the suggestion was made to me that I would write a memo to you guys with my suggestions, and then you could use that as part of your deliberation. Obviously, you don't have to take my suggestions, but since I work so closely with the budget throughout the year and from what we've received, I would just write you a memo and say, here's what I see, the pros, cons, differences. Clearly, we're watching this budget. We always watch it closely, but even closer than usual, because we know we do have a special town meeting that will be looking very closely at a number for the emergency services payment. That's going to be a large number. And so we want to make sure we factor into our brains this budget in relation to that number, because they're going to affect each other, obviously. So further along in the process. On the 13th, you have a request from the tech school to come in at 6 o'clock to present their budget, even though I essentially have their number in there. And you also have the emergency services facility project team coming in on the 13th to kind of give you an update. Again, we don't have bids in, but they want to bring you an update on where they are in the process and how things are moving along and what they see. I'm working with the treasurer collector and our financial advisor and our bond counsel. So as the numbers get shaped more and more, we have some estimates. Then we will have some estimates from them. Obviously, we don't know the final numbers until the bids. Once the bid comes in, we have a pretty tight week to turn it around and come up with some, at least initially, some numbers for people to understand. It's very hard to give us hard and fast, it will do exactly this to the tax rate, because the tax rate balances every year based on valuation and revenues. Our revenues might go up one year, and therefore that means that's good for us. That means that we've got more revenue. That means that the tax rate goes down. So we can usually make a pretty decent guess for a year or two out. After that, it becomes a little blurry because the revenues get farther and farther away. But we'll do our best to project a few years out. We can certainly say, the effect might be X on the tax rate, but we can't tell you what the tax rate's going to be because of all the other factors that play into the tax rate. All the other expenses you have, all the other revenues you have. But we'll do our best to come up with as good a picture as we can for a while. So that's kind of where my work has been cut out for me. But again, I'll send this out again tonight because there's a few minor tweaks based on some of the numbers here that I've corrected. And then Sunday, I will send you out a, we'll see if anything changes, but I have to finish the general one. I think we've got everything else in, but if any numbers change at all, I will send you a new one. And then I generally send you the budgets, just so you have them pulled out, the budgets you can expect for Monday night's meeting. Normally I try to do a little sooner. It's been a little crazy at my house. My daughter gets married on this coming Saturday, so I'm away for a few days in Vermont for a wedding, but I'll get them to you Sunday night because I'll be back by then. I don't anticipate a whole lot of change because pretty much everything here is stable, but I will send you if there's any changes, and I will send you the budgets, specifically the budget requests from each of the departments coming in, so you have that to look at like tonight.
Well, I hope on Saturday you have a joyous and enjoyable
I hope so
day.
too. It will be fun.
And that, is there any other questions from any of the members?
Anything else you want me to send you, or?
No, nothing to send me, but I, wasn't a meeting that I attended, but I think I mentioned that we have 2 proposals.
Oh yes, I don't
and
have those yet.
possibility of a third.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it looks like we will be looking at that third tomorrow. They were able to get their act together and get everything we needed to make a decision.
Right, and that factors in here, but not on your tax rate, so.
Right,
I mean,
it's not
that-
on tax rate.
Right, so I'll keep filling in. You do have tentatively the majority of the articles, but again, not all of them are necessarily in there until you decide what you want. And we're balancing free cash versus tax. In the past, you have put articles on the tax rate because you've wanted to keep the tax rate somewhat steady. We know we're not going to have a problem with that this year. So, because we have a rather large request coming in for the emergency services building. Although, generally speaking, the first payment does not happen in the first year. So, we'll see how that plays out. But, so when he has those articles, I still will put everything in there because obviously you'll want to see them. So.
Actually, Bernie, I've got a question. I guess it's more of a procedural thing since I'm new here. So we were discussing the sewer department when Isaac was here pitching his budget.
Yes.
They had requested, I think it was at least 1, if not 2 capital requests for a pipelining and a new water main. But I was under the assumption that there was, at the end of the day, there was enough money in the retained earnings to pay for those?
Yes.
Yes, I asked to request that they, I feel they have more than sufficient funds to do both projects.
To do both of those.
And that was my request, and
I sent that out. I did say to them that the finance committee was.
So here's my question.
No.
So that was our emphasis. So how does that get communicated back to that department that?
Well,
I emailed them.
Okay, so he knows.
Yeah, I emailed the
Okay.
committee, the sewer commission. I'm
Okay.
not sure what their decision is on that yet. I got some reluctance, but maybe they were taking it back to the commission to discuss, that they weren't sure they wanted to spend all that money this year. So
Okay.
that's really up to them to put forward. I was told to put one on hold and put the other one forward, but then we said, well, wait a minute, maybe you should consider both.
Got it. Okay, I just wasn't sure how the communication gets back.
no, the
to
problem
town.
is we don't communicate directly with the sewer commissioners. We bring that issue up to Andrea, who then will contact the commissioners. But I think both of us were on the same page that I thought that
Yes.
they could afford it and they should do it.
They should
I
do
think they were, these aren't luxury items. These are maintenance or infrastructure issues that need to be addressed promptly.
Yeah, so I'll follow up with them. I didn't get
Okay.
a firm answer, but I got the finance committee thinks maybe you should consider both these projects.
That answers my question. Thank you.
Oh, no problem. Now, our next meeting will be on Monday, March 6th at 6 p.m. I think we've concluded all our business. I will accept a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion that Sue Kaczynski, I make a motion that we adjourn.
I will second that motion.
Tony Mateo seconds that motion. We have to have a roll call vote.
David McCarthy says aye.
Tony Mateo, aye.
Bernie Parada, aye.
Sue Kaczynski, aye.
We are adjourned. Good night.